Welcome, Off-Season After Dark fans. Glad to have you here for episode 50. And I'll be honest, when we started last summer, I didn't know we'd make it this far, but very proud to have made it. And today we have Brandon Olson here to talk Florida Gators with us. So for those of you out there who are obviously familiar with Corey and Steve, Brandon is part of their Locked On network focusing on the Gators. So they definitely told me I should reach out, and I'm glad I did. So Brandon, this is an episode I've wanted to do for a while. For me, I kind of gravitate towards those teams that have the coaching changes and shakeups in the offseason, especially at the Power 4 level. Not that I love the G6 and diving into it. Our viewers, I don't think, oftentimes care about that as much. But glad to have you here. And let me just ask, first, where can our viewers find you the easiest? And what got you covering and putting out Florida Gator content?
You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, WNS_Brandon, Locked On Gators on all socials and YouTube. And what got me started covering the Florida Gators was Locked On came to me and they were like, hey, we need a Gators show. We know you're a lifelong Gators fan. I was already in media. I just wasn't covering the Florida Gators.
Were you doing the Giant Squad show before? Which one came first?
The Giant Squad show, we just did our first full year. We just finished.
Okay.
And so I've been doing Locked On Gators since 2021. And so it's been downhill for the Florida Gators since I took over, and I apologize. Yep. But trending up, a lot more optimistic about the current situation than I've been in the past. But so Locked On came to me for April 2021. I got started here, and never looking back, never planning on relinquishing this seat either.
Good. I will say the 2021 throwback. I was at the Gamecocks Gator game in 21, which was Todd Grantham and John Hevesy's last game coaching the Gators. They were let go after that game. So
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. And it's one of those, I don't get me wrong, I think Mullen was a good coach, but there were grumblings and it hit me like in the fourth quarter late in that game. It's like, this is the end for some guys. Not everybody's going to be coaching next week. And the writing was on the wall that this is not going to end well, especially that was the week before the FCS game. It would have made sense that you did some changes then, which is in fact what happened. But fast forward to the next coaching change. This last season, when we're talking about the coaching changes and, rehashing that, I always get to this last season. So when the end of the season came near and, you had the 4-game stretch of conference games that were losses and then the Florida State win, what were your thoughts in this moment? Were you like most – I always ask, did you agree with Billy being let go? But in this case, it seems like almost everybody agreed with it. I'm not hearing.
I wanted Billy gone in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted Billy.
I tend to agree with you. I think he's a very good coach who was in the wrong situation for him.
I think it's just too big a job for him, honestly. Yeah. I don't think he was built for it. 2024, the Miami game was like the 41-17 in the Swamp. I had front row seats for that, so that was super fun. Okay. But that game was kind of where I thought it was going to go poorly from there on out, just because you had 8 months to prepare for that. And that was the product that you put out on the field, and you were outcoached the entire time. Like it wasn't just like, oh yeah, they're a better team than us. You were outcoached every step of the way. And so that's where I was like, all right, like I don't think you're built for this, but maybe it's just week 1 is just off. And then
that A&M game happened 2 weeks later, and it was like, okay, this isn't looking good.
Yeah. Week 3, Texas A&M, Marcel Reed was like a late announcement as a starter. And they basically, I don't think they threw the ball. He wasn't even supposed to start. And then they came out and I don't think they threw the ball for the final like 22 minutes of the game. They didn't even attempt a pass. And you lost. And that was the first time I called for Billy Napier's job, because that's when I was like, okay, you've lost it. You don't have it anymore. And then we went through.
And both those games at home, too, was rougher.
Yeah, both those games at home, both lost in embarrassing fashion. And then we got like toward the middle of the season, I was still calling for his job. And there were people who were like, oh, well, you know, you can turn things around. I was like, no, it's cooked. I don't care about the results at that point when I could tell that the process is just not working. And
had he not went on that heater at the end with the LSU and Ole Miss wins, he probably would have got let go then. But
he should have been, yeah. He should have been.
Yeah,
that was, the Texas game, they announced a commitment to him, and I remember going through like the LSU and Ole Miss, and I remember the listeners were just like my comment section, for the people that wanted to believe were just like, well, if he turns us around, you need to apologize. And I was like, I'm not apologizing. I was like, if he wins out and finishes with a top 10 class, I will stop calling for his job. But I still want him fired. I'm just not going to keep calling for it because I know it's not going to happen at that point. And that's exactly what he did. And people kept that. And I didn't apologize for it. I still won't. And people were like, you need to apologize for it. And I said, if he ends up getting fired next year, that means I'm right. I'm not apologizing. Like if he ends up getting fired next year, that just means that they delayed what I felt like was a good decision at this point in time. So I'm not apologizing. Then he got fired and everyone was like, oh, thank goodness, that needed to happen.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, with you guys are in an interesting scenario with Florida, both with Napier and Mullen, where I kind of said this before, like, I think they're both good coaches who were in bad situations or weren't the right fit for the Gators.
Yeah.
How did you guys make that same mistake multiple times where these nominally good coaches just were bad fits there? How do you think that happened? Or is it for different reasons?
I think it's with Mullen, it was, you know, he was here when Florida was great. And so there was kind of like that. We can recapture that magic thing.
He felt like the chosen one. He's just the next guy to bring it back.
Yes. Yeah. And like he was successful with Mississippi State. And so like you kind of had at least a little bit of SEC proof of concept where it was like, okay, well, he's winning at Mississippi State. And so imagine what he can do with the resources and the backyard in Gainesville. With like everyone will be bought in. Like no one's gonna hesitate with him because, you know, Florida was great when he was here. And it just went poorly because he wasn't committed to actually building a roster and maintaining a roster. And then I think with Napier, they were like, well, we need the anti-Dan Mullen. Like, we don't need the guy that's going to be cracking jokes and being all funny and having a good time there. Like, we need someone who is serious about building a program.
We need the football guy.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Which ultimately, I also don't think he was like the football guy. I think he was a great program builder, but I don't think he was a great like actual in-game coach or. I also, frankly, I was not a fan of quite a few of the staff hires that he made. And so I think that they just brought in a guy that wasn't built for it. I think he'll be good at James Madison. I think the group of 5 or low power 4 is probably where he belongs. Because again, I do think he could build a roster. Like last year, they went 4-8, but I can't remember the last time a 4-8 team had 7 NFL draft picks. And that's what the Florida Gators had last year. So I don't think that he did a poor job building a roster. I think he did a poor job building a coaching staff and delegating where he needed to delegate. And so I think they tried to go just like the anti-Dan Mullen. And it was, I think, a bit of an overcorrection.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point about staff and the coordinators. Like, for a program like Florida, Rob Sale and Russ Callaway were not inspired hires at the offensive coordinator spot. When you talk about the word retread, and we often do in football with coaching hires, Ron Roberts' picture shows up there. I mean, he's just one of those guys. He will always coach, but you don't really have a lot of staying power at a lot of places. I think Austin Armstrong will be a good coach. I had Locked On Cougs here a couple weeks ago. We talked Houston. He's doing well there. They're on the up and up, but he was also kind of a greenhorn when Florida hired him, and very young, maybe not quite ready for that job yet. And then last year, there was, just we're in the middle of rehashing last year. We don't need to go into the coaches there too much, but I think that's a good point about not, the staff hires not being commensurate with how big of a program Florida is or wants to be. Now, the other side of that, which you talked about the staff, how much of the problems of the last couple of years do you think boil down to DJ Lagway? And do you see it as more of a they failed DJ, or was he just not the right guy and they hitched their wagon to the wrong one?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I'm gonna say it's like 80-20. I put the blame on the staff.
Okay.
I could also, after 2024, I said I was not satisfied with what DJ gave you in 2024 when he was a true freshman. Yep. That there were a ton of people who he was banged up in the spring, and there were a ton of people in the comment section and everything. They were just like, well, we know what we have in DJ Lagway. And it was like, do we? Because what I thought we had in a quarterback was a guy that can hit the deep ball, extend plays, and do nothing else. And I was like, that's not, I got insulted so many times during the 4-game winning streak at the end of the 2024 season because I was pounding the table about like, you're not playing sustainable football. You're not with DJ Lagway. You're not playing sustainable football.
Yeah, and he wasn't. Yeah,
yeah, and then you play Tulane in the bowl game, and Tulane goes, okay, we're going to take away the deep ball, and you throw 3 picks, just playing drop 8 coverage, and so it's stuff like that where it's like I thought the coaching staff failed him. I frankly I don't think he should have played much last year, if at all. But that was the decision that was made. And I do mean like part of it's for his health, part of it is for his development. But I think that you just got into a spot where the coaching staff knew that we need to play him. We're going to get fired if we don't win, and this is the guy that we think will make the strongest case of, well, maybe if you show enough flashes, we don't want to lose this kid, and so we'll keep. Which, by the way, bad process. I don't care how good a quarterback is. I don't care how good a recruit is. I'm never keeping a failing coach because he got a great recruit. I don't care. I'll get a coach that can actually win football games, and then I'll call that a day. And so I think it was a lot, but I think a lot of it was on Billy Napier specifically for also not wanting to give up offensive play calling duties and being pretty proven not good at that.
The one with DJ that kind of surprised me was you go from a coach on the hot seat who needs you to perform to win to a coach who's on the hot seat that needs you to perform to win. Like you're going to almost the same situation. And if I'm DJ, like I don't like that for him in that you're going from an unstable scenario to an unstable scenario, but it also tells me maybe those bigger programs weren't offering and knocking down his door, which is probably what it was.
Yeah, I mean, his dad played for Baylor, so he's got like the familial ties of just being familiar. And it's also, look, if Dave Aranda gets fired, which I like Dave Aranda, I think he's a fantastic defensive mind. Love what he did schematically at LSU. Love what he's done schematically throughout his career. But he should have been fired 3 years ago. He should have been fired many times at this point. And maybe 3 is a stretch. Like maybe I know the past 2 years, I'm like, oh, those were really bad years. Should have gotten
3 I think that's the year he was on the hot seat. Then they went on a heater and beat Iowa State in the conference title.
Yeah, and then now we've had these past 2 years where it's just like I don't know how willing Baylor is to fire him because it's like, dude, it should have happened by now. But let's say hypothetically DJ Lagway goes, hey, even if Dave Aranda gets fired, I'm staying at Baylor. Then I think that's maybe just like you wanted to be in a comfortable situation for you personally. And maybe that's what it is. So like I don't think that Baylor was a great decision for his career or for his development process, but I also think that part of what he wants to be is just be comfortable. Like I think that was one thing that Billy Napier did a really good job of like making recruits feel comfortable with him. We've heard the stories of recruits going, hey, like I want to commit, and Billy kind of being like, all right, like make sure it's the decision you want to make. Like make sure it's the decision. Like we're not going to push, we're not going to apply that pressure. And so I do think that he makes people feel comfortable. Look, I called for the dude's job, and when I saw him in person, he was cool as hell about it. Like he was just like, yeah, like it is. And so like I get that. So if DJ Lagway prioritizes that, then maybe that's what Baylor is, right? Like we know he turned down Lincoln Riley to go get coached by Billy Napier. I think if career development was your priority, Lincoln probably would have been the guy that you go to at that point.
Especially because you were coming off of Caleb Williams at that point, who had a Heisman #1 pick in the draft.
Exactly. And so I do think that maybe part of it was just like, I just want to be with a staff that I'm comfortable with. And I think he thought that was Billy Napier in Florida. And I think now he's like, all right, well, let me just go to a school where I know I'm comfortable with at Baylor. Texas isn't a spot for me. Texas Tech isn't a spot for me. Texas A&M isn't a spot for me. Like none of those, I would assume none of those were options. I thought one idea would have been that I wanted to see him do was go to Texas A&M, sit a year, get healthy, like get whatever surgery you need to get, sit a year, get healthy. And then when Marcel Reed now leaves, then go and be their QB1. But
the other option with that situation, in that, their old coordinator, Colin Klein, goes to Kansas State. Similar, you go, Avery Johnson is the dude for a year, you get healthy, then you're same offense.
But he went to Baylor, and that's on him. I have no ill will towards the kid, even when he was playing really poorly. My take was like, I do think he's fixable. I just don't think he was fixable at the University of Florida.
Yeah, and that's part of the gulf in talent with the Big Ten and SEC now is they're not get-right leagues. You don't it's a tough place to work out your kinks being in those schedules. It's rarely going to happen if it's not working right away. You oftentimes have to go elsewhere to really fix if something needs fixing.
Especially if you're going to a team that's like toward the bottom of the conference. It's like, that means you're playing like Baylor. I feel bad for him because I was having a conversation like last week with Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC, and we were talking about Baylor, and it's like, I don't know who most of his weapons are at Baylor. And it's like, now you're going to a spot where that's what you have. That's probably not a great spot to be in terms of like what the talent around you. But
he'll be Jake Spavital's a good coach. I think another guy who didn't do great as a head coach before, but I think is a good offensive coordinator.
Yep, agreed.
But they're also, again, because what we've talked about with the SEC and Big Ten, Baylor's lost a lot of those weapons they've had. So you don't know who he'll be throwing to this year. Like it's, your Bryson Washington, your best running back, went to Auburn, who you play in week 1. Your receivers, you did get transfers from Colorado and Oklahoma State, but that's not looking great skill position wise. So I think you brought up a good point there about his supporting cast, which I hadn't really thought of. So let's back on the coaching track. Billy got fired. We start the coaching process search. When that was happening, was Sumrall a guy you wanted from day one? Who were some other guys you liked in that search? Certainly, there were a number of top-notch guys mentioned for that job, as will be the case with a job like Florida. Who else were you interested in? Was he the guy? Tell me how that unfolded for you.
So the day, I don't know how familiar with Florida Twitter you are, but we had like weeks and weeks and weeks of people going, all right, whenever Napier gets fired, who do you want to hire?
The coaching carousel is kind of what I focus on the most, so I keep my ear to the ground with stuff like that.
It was
to say the least. I was not surprised when D-Day finally happened and he was cut loose.
I was. That's the thing where everybody wanted to give their list. I had done the whole in 2024. I thought Napier was going to be canned, and so I had started preparing for that. it didn't happen. And I was like, all right, I'm going to wait until he's actually fired before I talk about a list or anything. And so I had my list prepared. And the day Billy Napier got fired, I went live for like an hour or something like that. And I was just talking about candidates that I wanted Florida to look at. And the top of the list was like I did it in tiers. I don't like doing like a ranking of like 1 to 3 or whatever. I was like, I'm just gonna put tiers. Tier 1 had Lane Kiffin and Marcus Freeman in it. Those are my top 2 guys. And then we got the tier 2, which I had. Tier 2 was guys that I felt were proven winners. I believe I put at the Power 4 level. And so Brent Key was on there, which is a name that I would like, especially because I remember when talking about Brent Key, I was like, oh, and imagine if he brings Buster Faulkner with him, which obviously Buster ended up here anyway. But we had a bunch of names on the list, and I had one exception to the proven winner in the Power 4 level, and it was Jon Sumrall. And so Jon Sumrall was the only group of 5 guy in there. And then I had a tier 2A, which was like guys that are aggressive hires that could flame out really quickly and be really bad, but I think are worth a swing. And that was Alex Golesh, Will Stein, who obviously both are now in the SEC. And I forgot, there was a third name in there.
Okay. So I forgot the third name. Whenever there's openings out, I'll write an article for Mike Farrell Sports about the possible candidates. The ones I wrote last year, I drew up the article. James Franklin, this is when he still was
hated that. That was like the one guy I was like, I do not want James Franklin.
I had Lane Kiffin. I had Jed Fish. And
he was on my list too.
Fish was on my list.
I was not a big fan of it, but I thought he was a realistic candidate.
But he made sense to be a guy that was on the list, being a former Gator assistant. I had Golesh and Sumrall as options. And then another guy who I think I had on there as a one to look at would have been Eli Drinkwitz, if you could have gotten him.
Yeah, I had Eli in tier 2 as well. Again, I openly, I don't like Eli Drinkwitz. Like I met him in person. I thought he was a D-bag, so I don't like him.
I think he's a very good coach. I think he's extremely stable, which is something you guys could have used.
Yeah, I was like, he wins games, so I'm cool with it. But yeah, I did not like him, but he was out there.
And I remember you had said Marcus Freeman. I remember at the time the name thrown out there. Why I didn't include him, I thought he was ungettable at the time for that job. I felt like if he was leaving time, my thought was if Marcus Freeman's leaving now, it's going to be for the Raiders. I thought that would have been it. Yeah,
I was thinking either that or if Ryan Day left Ohio State, then maybe, but. Those were kind of but I still wanted to include Marcus Freeman just because I think he's a fantastic defensive mind.
Great. Top notch. And he's awesome. Yep.
And I was like, oh, this is incredibly unlikely. But like Dan Lanning's contract, I don't know what you or anybody watching or listening knows about it, but Dan Lanning's contract also has like Nike stock options in it. Ooh, for like if he stays through if he stays through the length of his original contract that he signed to go to Oregon, he gets it's like $30 million of Nike stock. And so I didn't include Lanning on the list because I was like, that essentially brings his buyout to probably somewhere in like the $60 million range. And Florida's not paying that. No school's paying that.
I wonder, and I've said it the last year, you wonder with him, after some of these openings have happened, I feel like Lanning is staying there either unless the NFL comes calling or potentially if Georgia or Alabama opens up again.
Yeah.
But what I know, I didn't know that about the Nike stock. He probably stays for the duration of the original contract now.
Yep. Which I think he signed like a 6-year contract, something like that at the beginning.
I was going to say it was 6 or 7. It was a decent year one.
Yeah. So he's going to be there until the end of that, I think. Which, hey, hell of a move if you can get that, and hell of a move for Oregon to offer that. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's why I was like, you know what, that ain't happening. Like Marcus Freeman, I thought was incredibly unlikely. Dan Lanning, I viewed as impossible. And so that's why Dan Lanning was not, but he would have been tier 1 for me. Okay. I am a big fan of his.
Yeah, it's tough not to be. And this is a slight landing tangent, but I feel that, some of the haters there will say, well, he's got blown out in the playoffs. Well, he's winning 12 games a year, and he also won a playoff. You don't say he gets blown in every playoff game. He beat Texas Tech in the playoffs last year, and they throttled him.
Beat the crap out of him. Beat the crap out of him.
He's just getting rolled in the playoffs. Yeah. And he got rolled by a team who rolled Alabama the week before, who beat Ohio State twice. So they're beating a team that would have beaten everybody they played last year.
Yeah. Yes. So
nobody's beaten Indiana. Yeah.
Yeah. And also both coordinators were mentally checked out at that point because Tosh Lupoi was taking the Cal job. Yeah. Will Stein was taking Kentucky.
I have had both Cal and Kentucky on in this offseason. So yes.
Yeah, so both those guys were like, all right. And look, kudos to you for wanting to finish out the year. But I think it's also really easy to go, well, I'm focusing on where I'm going to go. And so that's going to take away attention from where I'm currently at.
I always bring up this example, and this happened 20 years ago. But Mark Richt, when he left being Florida State coordinator to take the head job at Georgia, he was asked years down the road, and he said the worst decision he made was staying at Florida State for the national championship because you do a disservice to both sides. You're not doing your new job to the fullest, and you're too distracted to do a good job for the bowl game. If you're going to do that, you leave and take the next job, and then you're just gone.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Which, I mean, hey, like Jon Sumrall tried to do the two jobs thing for about a month before coming over to Gainesville. And look, they were never beating Ole Miss, but
no. I will say one, and I don't even call it a flaw because you have to say it, but a month or so back when Sumrall said, if they would have told me I couldn't coach the playoffs, I would have stayed at Tulane. Now, I don't believe that. You were leaving. Whether it be for Florida or somewhere else, he was going. I think it was because it was the right time for him to take an elite job.
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. And yeah, like I want to be like, oh yeah, like he because people can love it, hate it. People can hate that you hired another group of 5, group of 6 coach. But that dude's a psycho.
To me, the proof is in the pudding. You won at Troy and you won at Tulane. Like if it was you were good one year, I would get it more. This dude was good at multiple schools.
Yeah, made the conference championship every time he's been a head coach. Every year he's been a head coach, he's made the conference championship.
Yeah.
Like he's proof. That's why I was like, hey, he's the exception to the proven Power 4 winner because that dude has won everywhere. And even when he got hired, I remember saying, like, look, I don't know if he's going to work out at Florida, but I know the Florida Gators just hired a good football coach, and I'm happy with that. Like, I think we're at a time right now in college football where due to NIL, like rosters there's more parity than we've seen in a very, very, very long time, if not ever. And so there's more parity. And so I think right now you're at a time where coaching matters more than anything else. Like every team has talent, right? Every roster has talent. Obviously some have top and there's like tiers to it, right? There's top flight teams, there's championship contenders, whatever. There's college football playoff teams that aren't going to be championship contenders, but are happy to be there. There's teams that are going to be in the top 25, but not the college football playoff. But when you're talking about teams that are in your tier or like +1, +1 or +1, -1 tier, it's like coaching matters more than it probably ever has. And so if you get me a coach like Curt Cignetti, when he was just like, I win, Google me. It's like, I love that. Like, I want that attitude because like that matters. Coaching matters more now. When Jon Sumrall came in and he was just like, a winner's win. I'm a winner.
The proof is in the pudding there. Manny Diaz, Duke roster wasn't an ACC title win, but Manny's a pretty good coach.
Yeah.
And I also think like to that, the way you mature as a coach is important too. And Manny's a lot better than he was when he was at Florida. And you get guys who can come back as we'll see with Will Hall replacing Sumrall. Will Hall was a bad coach at Southern Miss. Maybe he's matured and can do better now. We don't know.
No, I gotta say I was not a big fan of Will Hall at Southern Miss, but I do thank him for letting Austin Armstrong be a defensive coordinator, and then Austin Armstrong, took the Alabama linebacker job for about a week and a half, and then came to Florida to be the DC.
So let's the coaching hire, the assistants. Let's spend just a little bit talking about Buster Faulkner, Brad White, the coordinators. I have to imagine you were very happy with the Buster Faulkner hire.
Yes, Buster Faulkner is a guy that for a couple of years we were talking about. Oh, Billy Napier needs to hire an OC, and Buster Faulkner was a name that would come up at least on my show quite a bit. I love Buster Faulkner's offense. I think I'm learning. I love a good I'm going to call it a power spread in like the run game, but I love an air raid, essentially passing attack with like a power spread run game. That to me is so fun. And I don't think you're going to see as much you're not going to see as much quarterback run game as you saw at Georgia Tech, right? Haynes King had like 16, 18 carries per game last year. You're not getting that at the University of Florida. But I do think
they also didn't have the running back depth that you guys will have this year.
Exactly.
Combined with Bow Pryor, Montgomery, you got three. But like I told Corey last week, your three running backs had a combined 400 carries last year across their three schools.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be awesome this year. And Duke Clark's another name that he's going to. I'm pretty confident he's going to be on the field there. Redshirted last year after getting banged up, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be on the field there. And he's a fun, I'm going to say recruit or prospect, I guess, because now he's in college. But he's a fun prospect. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, runs pretty fast, straight line speed. I think he's got work to do as an actual back, but I think just the physical makeup is really interesting there.
Yeah, the depth chart I'm looking at has him at 211. That's a good size.
Yeah, that's and again, like 6'2", 211. That's a whole lot of man coming down at you. You gotta tackle that if you're a corner, and that's not fun to do. And that's one thing that I think Buster Faulkner is going to really have fun with, is kind of going like, all right, I'm gonna get the ball to my backs in the flat. And if you're a corner and you want to tackle 6'1", 225, 230 Jaden Ball, and you want to tackle 6'2", 210 Duke Clark, you can have your way and try to do that one. But those are big dudes that a lot of corners are not going to be interested in tackling.
The other one that is interesting too, both Pryor and Montgomery, the two you brought in, very adept at pass catching as well.
Yeah.
So they're guys that had a decent amount of targets. I noticed that too. But yeah, Buster, like that. I imagine if things go well this year, Buster's probably a guy we're talking about in head coach conversations in December and January, whether that be at the G6 level or a lower level or a P4 team that's struggling. Buster's going to be in that talk, I think, next year.
Yeah, when he got hired, I said you're taking Buster Faulkner for 2 years. That's at most. Sorry, you're taking Buster Faulkner for max 2 years. I do think that he'll take. I think it'll be a P4 job. I think that'll be a P4 job. I think that he would clean up in the G5, G6, but I think he'll take a P4 job, because I think P4 teams, if you're successful in the SEC, those Power 4 teams are calling for you.
The one I've always mentioned for him, and Corey always shoots me down, it would make sense to me if Middle Tennessee would have, he's a former coordinator at Middle Tennessee. I think Derek Mason's going to get fired. Now, it's probably the most undesirable job in all of the FBS. They're so far behind NIL-wise, and their facilities are deplorable. He might not want anything to do with that job. Certainly possible. But, yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense for some P4 teams to go after him, too. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would hate to see it, but, like, if Florida State fired Mike Norvell and went, hey, we want to get a guy that we know can clean up in the ACC, that had a good year, if they have a good year, obviously this year offensively at Florida, has established himself in the state by being the offensive coordinator of the University of Florida, might not be the worst decision to take a swing on a guy like that.
If my alma mater, the Gamecocks, have a doomsday season and Shane Beamer gets let go, there are worse candidates for that job than Buster Faulkner if things go well.
Absolutely. Again, like he's got years of showing, hey, I can adapt to situations around me, and I think that has a ton of value. My thing is also, I want to know if and when he's a head coach, if he's going to try to be a play caller.
That would be the question. Yeah, we don't know that. Now, what about Brad White? Some people, I think, well, he was at Kentucky and so on. The defense wasn't the problem at Kentucky. They were actually always pretty salty, and him and Stoops did a good job on defense. It was the other side of the ball and that roster as a whole where they had problems. But going back, when Kentucky had their 9-10 win seasons a few years back, we were just assuming Brad White would be the next head coach when Stoops retired. That was kind of the end, but that didn't happen. We're in a different reality. So Brad White is now at Florida, and you bring SEC coordinator experience, you bring NFL experience. You could have done worse than Brad White as a D coordinator.
Yeah, I think that there's a few things about the Brad White hire that when it got announced, because it was very quick after Jon Sumrall got hired that the Brad White announcement came out.
Yep.
And there were quite a few things to it that I think a lot of people overlooked. And I will say, for the people that are concerned about like, oh, well, this is going to be the first time we see him as a coordinator without Stoops over his shoulder. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, Stoops is a great mind, great DC throughout his career. This is going to be your first time without him. However, a time has to be the first time we see that, right?
Yes.
And like you've got working experience with Jon Sumrall, because Jon Sumrall was at Kentucky a few years back, and so like you've got working experience with Jon Sumrall. Jon Sumrall brought in Greg Gasparito from Tulane. That was his defensive coordinator. Now your linebackers coach. That's another defensive coordinator experience mind in the room.
By the way, Greg is the guy I thought Tulane was going to promote to head coach when that happened. Clearly,
I was nervous that they would, because I love Greg. I love
because he was with him at Troy and then went to Tulane with him. Yeah.
Yes. And so like I think that you have Brad White there now with Coach Gass and with Jon Sumrall, and like you have defensive minds out there. And I think there's a lot of value in that. I thought that the Brad White hire was not one that I was like over the moon for, but I was like, all right, you hired a good SEC defensive coordinator, and that's what I care about. Like I care about just having a good. I view both Greg Gasparito on the defensive side of the ball and Joe Craddock on the offensive side of the ball as kind of like your coordinators in waiting. Basically, like if Brad White gets a head coaching job somewhere, which I think he would probably go, I think he'd be more likely to go G5, G6.
He'll be an interesting one. And the longest tenured G6 head coach, Troy Calhoun. Brad White was a former Air Force assistant. He could be a guy in that mix for that job, I think, when Calhoun is done.
Yeah, I think if there's a P4 job that I'm literally just in this moment thinking that like, oh, Brad White could be up for at some point in a couple of years, it'd be like a Boston College would be a thing, because he's from the Northeast, and that's so he'd have those ties.
He's from the Northeast. The other one for him, he's a Wake Forest alum. I think Jake Dickert gets a bigger job in a year or two because he's a really good coach. Brad White could be a Wake Forest candidate.
Yeah, I think that there's all that. I will be interested to see what Wake Forest does, because if they're successful, I think they might look for a more proven guy than a Brad White. But even then, like I think that you have your coordinators, and then you took your Tulane coordinators and made them position coaches, and I kind of view them as like taking that back seat, the demotion and role as in waiting. Yeah,
if Wake Forest does better, Buster might be a guy they would go for, really.
Yeah, honestly, like, and so I think that you got a good staff around you. Again, I don't think Brad White was like the splash hire. I think that was Buster, but I think that Brad White is a proven, consistent defensive coordinator, and like you mentioned, that wasn't the problem. Like people can look at the stats and go, "Oh, Kentucky, they got blown out by I think it was the Louisville game. They got absolutely annihilated." And I remember being on a live stream, and I just like looked up what happened in that game, and it was like short field, because Kentucky was either turning the ball over on downs or just outright turning it over.
They had 5 or 6 counting turnover on downs. They had like 6 or 7 turnovers.
Yeah, and so I was just like, what do you mean? Like, the defense is going to give up points. Like, the entire success of that team rode on, can the defense get us stops so our offense can kick a few field goals, maybe score a touchdown, and we're going to hope to God that we win that game. Like, that was the approach that they had.
These guys were good enough on defense 3 years ago to win 10 games when Lynn Bowden, a converted receiver, was playing quarterback for 9 games.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And like they were good enough on defense despite being significantly out talented to give fights to Georgia, Ole Miss, like to pull off an upset every now and then. It's like stuff like that matters when, like we spoke about a few minutes ago, like coaching matters. Like you're significantly outmanned and outspent, and you still went out there and put up a hell of, and I know like moral victories do not count. They don't matter. I get that. When we're talking about evaluating a coach, I think it does matter to say, hey, you were significantly out-talented and you put up a very, very fair fight with teams that way better than you. And that matters when we talk about just evaluating coach talent, in my opinion.
It does. Like, I had that conversation relative to the Sun. I work at Marshall now, so it was relative to Bob Chesney and Brian Vincent last year.
Yeah.
Well, 9 wins, all wins are not created equal. If Brian Vincent wins 9 games this year, they're going to build a statue of him at ULM. If Billy Napier wins 9 games at JMU, ooh, that's a regression. What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're going to be like, okay, well, we just made the college football playoff. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You mean 9 wins?
Yeah. Let's move into the Gator roster a bit. QB wise, we've had, on our group show, and then just me with Corey and Steve, we've had a lot of discussion about, is Philo or Tramel Jones going to be the guy? And I don't know if you've seen our talk, because we're each on one side of the fence. So I want to know what you think will happen with the Gators QB job before I tell you my thoughts. If you don't.
So I prefer Tramel Jones. I think he is the more physically talented option. I would prefer a guy that can stretch the field vertically. I'm also just frankly not super high on Aaron Philo. I think that his arm strength is a concern for me. His arm talent is a concern for me. And windows in the SEC are way shorter, or way smaller windows than he's dealt with in the past. I know, like, he threw the pick against Gardner-Webb that was getting hit as he threw it, but like you ran into the hit and then tried to let it fly. And so it's tough for me to go, oh, well, he was getting hit. And it's like, he was getting hit because he ran into it. Like, that's what it is. I think that he had a hell of a comeback, the NC State game in 2024. I will say this. I prefer Tramel Jones based on what I've seen. I have bigger questions about Aaron Philo based on what I've seen. I haven't seen enough of either of them to really be like a hard stance. Like, we've seen 135 combined pass attempts between the two of them over the past 2 years. Tramel Jones is the only one that threw passes against an FBS team last year, because Aaron Philo only threw against Gardner-Webb. But Tramel Jones has never played in an even low leverage situation. He's played in no leverage situations both times. So blowout win over LIU, blowout loss against Kentucky. What we saw in the spring game, I was more impressed with Tramel Jones, but realistically, I've seen 4% maybe of the passes they've thrown. And the coaching staff has seen way more in 11 on 11. I will say, yes, reporting from spring camp was that, Aaron Philo is turning the ball over more. I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't care about hearing that, though, because reporters were reporting that, but reporters weren't at 11 on 11 sessions. So reporters were reporting what they were told from other people. Am I supposed to then relay that to more people? And it's like a fourth line of telephone that we're dealing with here. I care about what I saw, and that's all I'm basing it off of. I don't care what was reported, because you could also go, Aaron Philo threw a pick, and it's like, okay, well, did it hit a receiver in the hands, get popped up, and then get picked? Was he getting hit when he threw it, whatever it might have been, or was he off platform? So I don't dislike Aaron Philo. I'm just more comfortable with Tramel Jones. That being said, I do think it will be Aaron Philo.
So our Corey's in the Tramel Jones camp. I am in the Philo camp. Not that I prefer Philo. It's that I think he will be the guy for me. I don't think Buster would have brought him with if it wasn't the plan that he be the guy and that he didn't have a significant leg up on the job coming over with the coach because of that prior experience.
I do think that there's validity there in like, oh, Buster wouldn't bring him over if he didn't think he could be the starter, which I do think that's true. Okay. I do think it's true to say Buster wouldn't bring him over if he didn't think he can be the starter. I understand when people say like, oh, well, he wouldn't have brought him over if he wasn't going to be the starter. I think that I'm less, sold on. But I will also say that I think for Aaron Philo, your best option was to go to Florida with Buster Faulkner, even if it's competing for a starting spot, because, Buster Faulkner is the guy that made that offense go round at Georgia Tech. It was not, it was not Brent Key that did that. They didn't hire like this incredible name as offensive coordinator. It's George Godsey, who was a tight ends coach with the Ravens. Like, so it's not like you brought in like, okay, we lost Buster, we're going to go bring in this new innovator. Like Andy Kotelnicki is now going to be calling plays for us. Like, that's not happening either. And so I do think that for Aaron Philo, your best decision for your career also was to go with Buster Faulkner. I think that Buster believes that Philo could be the starter. I don't know how much I'm convinced that it was, hey, come here and be the starter. But that's again, that being said, I do think that contributes to Aaron Philo probably having a leg up. Not even in the sense of like, oh, like he knows the offense, because the offense is going to change a bit. We can't talk about Buster Faulkner's adaptability and how he's going to have so many more better weapons here, and then also just pretend that the offense is going to be the same.
That's
like,
fair. That's a good point.
The ball 16 times a game, but I do think that Aaron Philo knows what Buster Faulkner wants from a quarterback, and I think that that has value in terms of Aaron Philo impressing the coaching staff. So I do think it'll be Aaron Philo. I'd prefer Tramel Jones, but I'm not like, no matter who it is, I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to be real. No matter who it is, I've got doubts and I've got concerns. I'm still going to have to see it on the field on Saturdays, starting week 3. I'm not going to put too much stock in camp.
And the one thing I brought up last week in talking with Corey on is the QB of the future may not be on campus yet. Is it Taven Thompson? It's the recruit, the top 10 QB recruit that they've got to commit from. Davin Davidson or something.
Yeah.
I knew it was like similar for And he could be the guy. He's a dude.
I with that, I'm also thinking like you could also go to the portal again. Like if whoever shows up doesn't impress you, you can go to the portal again. Because I think you're losing, whoever loses the battle probably transfers out, right?
Yeah.
And so you can say Davin is you've got Will Griffin on the roster, who when Will Griffin committed, I was not a fan of his. His senior film was a hell of a lot better. And so you've got Will Griffin there. Davin Davidson is someone that I am a little skeptical of, just because he's got this, like, I'm not a big fan of the throwing motion, and I don't think that it's one that's going to speed up much. When you have these like 6'7" quarterbacks, it's really long limbs. Your motion is going to naturally be slower. I'm not sure how much you can speed it up. And again, I have a concern about the SEC windows being pretty tight. If the solution is, oh, just be smarter than everybody else then to offset the speed, like that's not an easy thing to do either. No. And so I do think he's got a really high ceiling if you can get him there. I think it's going to take a while to get him there.
Is Aiden Warner still on the roster? I thought he was.
He is, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, running back wise, where there's very little questions, or maybe the question is, what is the workload split going to look like? Because you
the only question. That's the
only guy. You have 4 guys that are, obviously Baugh, Evan Pryor, London Montgomery, all known commodities, and then you mentioned Duke Clark. So for those of you out there who haven't heard me talk about it before, Evan Pryor was at Cincinnati last year, started at Ohio State. London Montgomery at ECU last year. I know those of you that have seen me with Steve and on Locked and Ole Miss talk about him because Ole Miss's old quarterback at ECU with him last year. Yeah. So this room looks good, Brandon. It's a top 5 running back room in the country. I don't even know where to start. I mean, maybe that workload split is the place to start, and maybe the only thing to talk about with this group of how much less workload can we give Ba to make it so he's healthy at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the only question that you do ask.
Yeah.
I think that. So my thought is that I think I'm going to knock on wood. If anything happened to Jaden Ball, I don't think Evan Pryor would step in and be running back too. But I do think that Evan Pryor is going to have the second most touches in the room because I think he's going to get those design touches. But I think if something would happen,
that's a fair point. Yes.
Yeah, I think if something would happen to Ball, you'd probably want someone more equipped to go between the tackles, which I think both London Montgomery and Duke Clark are more equipped to go between the tackles. I will say I've also had people recently get mad at me for saying that about Evan Pryor being able to run in between the tackles because he did it at Cincinnati. And my thought there is that Cincinnati does not have a lot of talent at interior defensive line or linebacker. The only the only picks they had go in the top 2 days of the NFL draft this past year were Lee Hunter from Texas Tech, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, Big Citrus, Dominic Orange from Iowa State, and then Jake Golday.
Vikings now.
Yeah, and so Jake Golday was on your team. You never had to face him. Big Citrus and the Texas Tech guys, like that's cool, but that's it. And then also the Big 12 has like a bunch of defenses that'll go 3 down, and so it's easier to run it on the interior against them. You're not going to see that much in the SEC, and so that's where I have a little bit of like I got to see you do it against SEC defenses before I could say that. Yeah. Or at least 4 down fronts before I can be confident that you're going to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally get that. But it's a great position group. That's we're talking good problems to have here with that running back group.
Oh, yeah.
Receivers, Vernell Brown's back as the one I wanted to ask about Dallas Wilson. What's his status now? Do we know? Is he healthy?
Full go.
Okay. Because he still had the red flag in the depth chart I was looking at. And then you did very well in the portal. Eric Singleton was at Auburn last year. Previously was at Georgia Tech with Buster. Bailey Stockton was at Georgia Tech last year. And then a guy not as many people were talking about, but we saw flashes from was Jalen Lloyd from Oklahoma State. They were just so bad the last 2 years. Everybody forgot about them. But all three of those guys should be players this year to one level or another.
Yeah, and Micah Mays as well. I'd also throw in there from Wake Forest. I think he's going to end up being wide receiver 4 this year for the Florida Gators. Okay. But yeah, I think Eric Singleton Jr. was a huge addition for me personally. Love his game. Thought he was going to be, and I thought he was going to stick in the draft just because like that's an NFL player if I've ever seen one. I know the production was down, but like that was Auburn's passing attack. That was an Eric Singleton. I'm going to say for a second, I absolutely hate what Auburn did because Eric Singleton Jr., when he was at Georgia Tech, was thriving as an outside receiver that went vertical a lot. And then Auburn went, hey, we're going to put you in the slot, keep you underneath the entire time. You cool with that? It's like, what the hell are we doing? Like that's what I do love that this coaching staff, recruiting and the portal has taken guys that have played the role they're going to play at Florida and gone, all right, you're going to, like, we know you can do this. We've seen you do this. And so that's what we're going to ask you to do. Where I feel like Auburn was just like, you're a big name player. Let's just get you in here and figure it out later. And I hate when coaches do that. I think
what you said there sums up what went wrong with the Jimbo Fisher era at A&M. It's, we're just going to put all these dudes together and make it work. You don't do that.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
It also may have been part of what went wrong for James Franklin last year at Penn State. Uber talented roster. They seem to have no rhyme or reason for what they were doing.
Yeah. What James Franklin did to Andy Kotelnicki, I will never forgive him. Sorry, I think Andy Kotelnicki's an awesome OC, and I think James Franklin made him rein in too much once they lost Tyler Warren and just completely destroyed what could have been awesome.
Glad to see Kotelnicki back with Leopold at Kansas. Could be good. Yeah.
Yes. Ton of speed at the receiver room. I need to see Vernell Brown III be more consistent. A lot of drops last year that I'm not cool with. Dallas needs to be healthy. But like, if those 3 are healthy and VB cleans up the drops, that's one of the best trios in the country. I think I would say this. I think Eric Singleton Jr. is the best receiver in the room. that's not a conversation or anything like that for me. I think
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, I think
so.
he's the best receiver in the room. I know Florida Gators fans, we love Dallas. We love Vernell Brown III. Eric Singleton Jr., NFL receiver proven at this point. And so I think he's the best receiver in the room. So I'm essentially asking guys with a ton of potential to step up and be wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. And I don't think that's a tough. I mean, hell, if Vernell Brown III gives me what he gave me last year, that's wide receiver 2 for me, and that's cool. And Dallas Wilson, you're going to be an X out there. You're healthy. We're good to go. And so I think that they've got a really good top 3, and I think they've got the depth that can just fit what this offense wants. You got TJ Abrams back as well. It's going to be in the slot. Bailey Stockton, Micah Mays. Like, you brought in guys that can contribute for you. And that's what I think you really just needed, was guys that can be contributors. You don't need to go bring in stars. And so I think that's what they did. Love it.
Good. Tight end room. Luke Harpring followed Buster from Georgia Tech. Lakota Dupree was at JMU last year. He's the guy I saw play in person last year. Of course, younger brother of CJ, formerly at Alabama and Maryland. And then you guys do return Amir Jackson, who did play a lot of ball last year. What's that room going to look like?
Who the hell knows? Honestly, okay. I'm not super impressed with the room. I will say that. Okay. I particularly did not like Lakota Dupree's blocking every time they played a Power 4 team, which you're going to be playing Power 4 teams a lot. And so I didn't like that. Thought he was just outmatched. I thought that Amir Jackson should have played more last year, but for whatever reason, didn't.
He was one when I'm looking up this, like I was looking up the roster, the numbers and stuff. I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize he played in 11 games. But also that gives no context to how many plays you're playing each game or what scenarios you're playing in.
Yeah, I will say it was he was on the field in a lot of games. He was not on the field for a lot of snaps. Which is, I spoke to members of the coaching staff. They were just like, I can't explain why he's not there. I don't know. I don't know why he's not out there more. So that was the thing where even internally there was debate and dispute about it. But I think he brings a lot of promise. Lakota Dupree, I need to see him be a better blocker as well, because there was a tell for Georgia Tech last year. Georgia Tech, obviously a team that ran the football a lot. The tell was that if Luke Harpring was on the field, they were probably throwing the ball. Like he was such a bad blocker that when he was on the field, way more often than not, they threw the ball. And that's, again, you're talking about a team that ran their quarterback 16 times a game. And so they were running the football a ton, but then this one guy's on the field and we know that they're throwing it. That's a tell that I need to be settled when you're going to step onto the field, because there's going to be coaches like Kirby Smart that are going to kick the crap out of you if they know what you're doing.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah. O-line wise, return 2 guys. I was looking at that I remember the left guard, Harris. Nice. Okay. And then Caden Jones. I saw those 2 were on the roster last year. The other 3 replacing. But you also got some, again, we have Harrison Moore, another Georgia Tech transfer.
Yep.
And then TJ Shanahan from Penn State. Good player. So I think both of those 2 could be very good starters. Is Shanahan going to be right guard likely? I wasn't sure which spot
I would say I think it's going to be. I think they have their interior set. I think their interior is going to be Najee Harris on the left side, Harrison Moore at center, TJ Shanahan at right guard. There is a contingency of the fan base that thinks that Bryce Lovett is still challenging for right guard after he started the first couple games at right tackle last year, which look, that was the thing in the offseason last year too, and they announced he was moving to tackle. Hated it. Thought it was a stupid decision. Didn't think he was capable of playing tackle in the SEC. Thought he could be a quality guard, but not tackle. Lost his job.
Shanahan, Harris, Moore, though, that's a pretty good interior.
I think that Shanahan is an awesome fit for Buster Faulkner's offense. When I was watching his film, I was like, look, I like the pass pro sets, and I really like how you pull, and you're going to be asked to pull in this offense. And so I really like that. So I think he's a great fit for the offense. Tackle concerns the hell out of me. because I don't know who it's going to be. Yeah, Caden Jones is back, but he's in a competition with. Just at both tackle spots, there's Caden Jones, there's Egan Boyer, there's Emeka Ugorji, who transferred in from Stanford. Egan Boyer's Penn State.
Yeah, Ugorji in the depth chart I was focusing on. They listed Ugorji at left tackle and Caden Jones at right tackle. With the guy behind Ugorji, they had Fletcher Westfall.
Yeah, I was gonna say Fletcher Westfall. This is his first time healthy in over a year now, so we're gonna see him and see if he's gonna be available. See if he's gonna be playing there. But Emeka is an interesting one because he was someone that people hated when he committed. Because you look at his PFF numbers and he allowed, I want to say, 7 sacks last year. But also I will say he was splitting time between right guard and right tackle last year, so it was that. But also.
It's also a team who, when they were throwing the ball, it was a lot of deep shots. You're going to, by nature, allow more sacks when you're doing that.
Yep. And also, I don't know about how you feel about it. I generally don't want true freshmen even playing significant snaps on the offensive line, let alone starting.
Nope.
And that's what Emeka was. And so for me, I'm going, all right, you're a true freshman starting offensive line at the power 4 level. I expect you to get your ass kicked. I'm not going to fault you for getting your ass kicked. That's just, I can't do that. That's what I expect of you. But I also will say that the North Carolina game, he gave up, I think it was 4 sacks. And I remember when I was writing his scouting report, that I marked down the sacks where it's like the first one, I think he thought he had the running back helping him, but he didn't because he only blocked one side of the rusher. And by the time he realized it, it was too late. So there was that one. The second one, he was losing, quarterback stepped up into the sack as well. Third one, he's got smoked right there. And the fourth one, he just whiffed entirely. So it's not like they were all clean or anything like that. I think the only one where I don't entirely fault him for is the one where the quarterback stepped up into it. But outside of that, that's still 3.5 sacks, we'll say, that you gave up in one game. That's not exactly fun. But Bill Troutwine reportedly loves him. And I will say this, I'm not high on the offensive line talent, but I am very high on the offensive line coach. And so, and I am the type where I don't care about the personnel, I care about the unit.
I'm saying, to me, it looks like that starting group will be okay. I have big questions about the depth.
Yep.
And maybe I'm wrong, but that was kind of one of my impressions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely fair in that. The only depth player I'd feel good about is whoever's the backup at right guard. If that's Bryce Lovett or if that's CJ Shanahan, I'm good with that. Anything else, I will have massive questions.
Yeah. Now let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, where past DUIs, they were pretty good. And also, I'll always look at the advanced metrics. They're very good at tackling. That was one of the things they were awesome at. 7th in the country at tackle rate, which doesn't happen by accident. You got to be fundamental. And I feel like with White and Sumrall, that will only continue because they're guys that are going to pride themselves in that. One of the groups, especially this linebacker group, looks very good to me.
Yeah, they are.
When we'll get to all of them, that D-line, you return a few more. Or sorry, you bring in more linebacker, but at D-line, James, Mbachu, Brandon Bett, these are all decent guys. It's tough to find a weakness per se on the defense, even if there are some question marks.
Yeah, I love the defensive line talent. I will say that was the thing where even before the portal additions, I was like, I expect at least the starters to be pretty damn good on the defensive line this year. At F, the strong side end spot, that's where you got Cameron James. That's where you got LJ McCray. That's where you got Emmanuel Oyabadajo. I think that's an insane trio to have.
Oyabadajo could be. It's oddly, I've become exposed to him a lot in doing the Locked On Vandy stuff because Talon Carter also portaled from Jacksonville State to Vandy. So that's how I'm seeing Button. Whoa, he looks pretty good too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a giant too. 6'6", 310 pounds. It's ridiculous, and he's built
it's no wonder with those two as your 2 D tackles, you dominated CUSA last year. Nobody could.
I think that you got that. So you're going to have those strong side ends. They're awesome. Your Jack, Jaden Woods. I thought he was good for a freshman. I need to see a lot more from him this year, though. He's one of those guys where, like, I like to talk about a lot of these young guys when they go, "Oh, he's so good." I'm like, well, good for a freshman, but not good overall. And you're not playing like this isn't high school where it's like, oh yeah, I'm on like a freshman team. Like this is you're playing 22, 23, 24-year-olds. Like you got to be out there ready to go. I thought it was good. I just needed to be more consistent. True freshman KJ Ford at Jack is the only true freshman that I think is going to play a significant role this year. I think he's big time pass rusher potential. I think he's got insane first step, really long arms.
And that pass rushing, that's one of those niche skills that you might not need as much development or experience at. It's you're going to line up here and rush that guy. It's one of those transferable niche skills that you can just do sometimes.
Yeah, and so I think that's going to be really good. On the interior, Brandon Bett, big fan of him. I really think he's going to have a good year this year. Joseph Mbachu, big fan of his potential. Someone that, this is his third year playing football, was a soccer player before that at that size. Jeremiah McLeod was really good for a true freshman. Again, one of those guys that was really good for a freshman, but not really good, period. I think Jeremiah McLeod and Brendan Bett specifically are going to be really benefited with the defensive scheme now because they're no longer two gapping up front. Now it's one gapping. And I think that guys like that
help a guy like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think having the guys with a great first step like that is huge. With Jeremiah McLeod, like I remember writing his high school scouting report and I was like, look, he's someone that he wins with two ways. Great first step, relentless motor. That's it. Those are the way he's winning as a pass rusher. This allows you to use that first step more. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And DK Kalu coming over from Baylor, going to be just an interior guy that plays both spots, I think. And he's someone that, while we were speaking about Baylor coaches earlier, I remember watching DK Kalu's film and I was just like, I don't know what the hell they're being taught there because so many of the defensive linemen, you snap the ball and they just go hands and head down and just collide with you. And I'm like, you don't see what's happening at that point at all. Like they're just going head down and attacking. And I was like, you don't see what's happening. I don't know what's going on there. So I don't know if DK Kalu is going to be great because I didn't love his film, but I also recognize that a lot of them were, and again, this is across the defensive line at Baylor in general. So I feel like that has to be a coaching thing at that point. That I'll see what you do with, at least good coaching at this point. And so I'm very open to seeing what DK Kalu brings to the table. Didn't love his film, but not out on him.
Okay. Yeah. Now we'll move on. Linebackers look good. I was going to, is Miles Graham healthy?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about. Okay. But between Graham, Jaden Robinson, Aaron Childs, good looking group.
Yeah, that's
there's not a lot
of the better trios.
Yeah, and Jaden Woods is a good player. Yeah, too. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think that those linebackers are going to be really freaking good. I shared this with like our insider program the other day. That I was talking to an NFL person. And they were like, yeah, the league really likes Jaden Robinson. And I was like, that's good because I think that a lot of the fan talk has become Miles Graham and Aaron Childs.
I was going to say, when you said NFL, Childs is the guy I thought you were going to mention when you said that.
No, it was Jaden, which I was shocked about Jaden Robinson just because he's so sawed off, right? He's 6 foot, 230. And so he's a really sawed off backer, but they like the way he moves in coverage. They like his tackling, and so they're not too concerned with it. And so the league really likes him. Excited to see what Aaron Childs can bring to the table this year. I think he's another guy where like the scheme is really going to benefit him.
I agree. But to me that's almost like similar to the running back room. It's like we know there's dudes here. It's how are they going to split up all the time? And it's easier to do at linebacker because you're playing multiple at once.
And you're going to see base 3-4 at some points this season with 4. So
feel like D-back, even though it's not weak, is probably the unit with the most questions on defense. what can you, Cormani McLean was a top recruit, obviously started at Colorado there now. Bryce Thornton will be, coming back, played a ton last year. Had a lot of tackles. And then Alfonso Allen was the other guy who, was he hurt a good chunk of last year? Because his numbers were a little off to me when I was looking at him.
Just depth.
Okay. But
yeah,
give us your spiel about the D-backs and, both the guys I mentioned and those who might play a lot that I didn't mention.
Yeah. At corner, I like the top four that you have, the top four options. I believe that Deshaun Johnson, if he's healthy, we have been told that he had to get a cleanup procedure, so he's going to miss the first few weeks of camp. But you know how those can go, where it's like sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, he's going to miss a few weeks of camp, and then it's like we're actually going to hold him out the first two games because it's FAU and then Campbell, and so we'll just get him ready for the SEC.
Yeah.
But I think Deshaun Johnson is going to be one of your starters on the outside. Then I think it's Cormani McLean, Ben Hanks, Jabari Flowers competing for that other one. Honestly, any combination of the four, I'm going to say any combination of the three with Deshaun Johnson, I'm good. I think Cormani, I need to see a bit more from him this year. I'm tired of hearing about, well, he has so much potential. He's 6'3", he's fast, he can do this, he's got ball skills. That's cool. I need to see just more consistency from him there. Jabari
That's
Flowers,
reasonable because he hasn't shown us on-field play commensurate with what his potential is yet.
Exactly. Jabari Flowers, I was really impressed with as a true freshman. I thought the way that he handled the Mississippi State game against Brandon Thompson and Anthony Evans, I want to say his name is. I thought the way that you handled that speed was impressive.
Good play,
A really tough offense to play corner against as well, and so I really like that. I thought his Florida State game, he got mossed one time by Deuce Robinson, and outside of that, it's just clamps. So loved that. Thought he was really impressive. Would like to see him play a lot. Ben Hanks didn't play a lot. When he did play, I liked what I saw, but didn't play a lot. And so I think that that's something where it's like, all right, well, he's reportedly taken this huge leap this offseason. So that's one I want to buy into it, but I got to see it.
And looking at his numbers and stuff, it's surprising. His run stopping rate was very good for a corner when I'm like, whoa, enough where it stood out to me in doing these multiple times a week. It's like, whoa, that's a pretty good tackler in the open field. So
yeah, he's someone that has shown promise. It's just genuinely about like, all right, well, let's see, put it all together on a more consistent basis and get more playing time, of course.
Okay.
Then you got Kanye Clark is going to be starting in the nickel.
Okay.
I know that on every depth chart, you're going to see either Elijah Owens or Dylan Purder listed as the backup nickel. I think it's more likely that
Elijah Owens is listed as the backup on mine. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that you see one of the safeties slide over. Bryce Thornton is back. DJ Coleman, I was a huge fan of at Baylor. We were talking about him on Locked On Gators before Florida even expressed interest, at least that I know of. And I was like, I wanted him at nickel, but I was cool with him at safety. There have been plenty of times where I've seen kids that Florida's talking to, and I say I don't want them, or I'll take them at one position but not another. But DJ Coleman, I would gladly take a nickel or safety. So I could see a scenario where it's like, all right, Bryce Thornton, DJ Coleman, Kanye Clark are your two safeties and the nickel. And you want to take Kanye Clark off, you put DJ Coleman at nickel, you bring in Cam Dooley at safety. And so I think that there's that combination. I like the top three safeties you have, because I think the top three safeties are Bryce Thornton, DJ Coleman, Cam Dooley. I would like to see Lagonza Hayward play more. Drake Stubbs played very little defensively last year. Was a special teamer, but played very little defensively last year. And when he did play, it was not awesome. And so I would like to see that development. He was always someone that I viewed as like he's going to need time. But Lagonza Hayward is someone that I want to see more of this year, especially operating as a box safety. I think he's going to thrive there. He played nickel last year, so it's going to be his first year actually playing safety. But I think he got a lot of guys that I look at and I'm like, all right, I like some of what I've seen, or I like what I've seen so far, but we got to see more of a sample size. And it's just, I think now it's just about, I need to see that sample size more than anything else.
Yeah. I get that.
And so that's kind of where I stand on the secondary in general.
Okay. Last position-wise, last but not least, I will say you guys might have one of the best kickers in the country with Patrick Durkin coming over from Tulane with Jon Sumrall, top-notch kicker. Trace Mack was pretty good. I mean, he's replacing a guy who was good, and Durkin's going to be one of the better kickers in the country. He's
look, Jon Sumrall, when he came over, he got announced at Florida, and immediately an offensive lineman that was committed to Tulane flipped to Florida.
Okay.
And that got rescinded because we were pretty much like Jon Sumrall was pretty much like, I'm not poaching Tulane. I'm not taking things from Tulane. Jon Sumrall did take two things from Tulane. It was Alec Clark and it was Patrick Durkin. Those are the only two Tulane players that came over. They came over for a reason, right? Special teams coordinator Jonathan Galante was with Jon Sumrall as well. And so they came over for a reason, right? Like you took them over with a great special teams unit, and now they're coming back. Like I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in what you're bringing to the table with any of the players, but I got to say, they were good last year. I expect them to be good again this year. And so that's kind of where I stand on it. Again, Jonathan Galante, I think, is a very good special teams coordinator. So I trust his opinion there. I've seen both these guys be productive and be effective. What is not to like about what you're bringing there with your kicking unit?
Yeah, no, I think so. Sorry, I'm going to get to our last segment now. Brandon, I appreciate it. I did run long, but it was a good conversation. I always ask our guests two things at the end. In the SEC, our conference, which coach is on the hottest seat? I feel like the obvious answer is Shane Beamer of my alma mater. It has to be.
Yeah.
Would you say anybody else, or is it him?
I say it's Shane Beamer for me. I've very openly have said I am not a believer in Shane Beamer. He is one of two coaches that has played Billy Napier multiple times and never beaten him. And so I will say the other one is Jeff Lebby, and I can at least say Jeff Lebby's young, new at his position.
I think if another bad year happens with Beamer, I will absolutely be for him being gone. I will say in his defense, he took over a bad situation. Yeah. 3 of his 5 years, they've won over their projected win total, and they won 9 games 2 years ago, which was against that schedule was tough. So he's done good more years than he's done bad, but it's still not consistent enough for what I want to see.
As I think part of it is the inconsistency. I think part of it is at a certain point, I need to know what you are. And if you're just a roller coaster every year, that's not what I want to deal with as a university.
Agree. And the other question I was asking, this one makes people think a little more. What coach in the SEC with a good season or two do you think could get elevated to a blue blood job and get a lot bigger job? This question's tougher in the SEC and Big Ten because there's so few jobs you would leave for.
Yes, I was going to say I think part of it that makes it tough is that there's you're in the SEC already, right? You're already at a good spot. I would say Will Stein.
That's exact. Yes.
Yeah, I think Will Stein. He's super young. He's an offensive mind, getting his first head coaching shot at a spot that's not going to invest as much as. And look, they're investing more than they have, but they're not going to invest as much as a blue blood program.
The other one I wonder, would Alex Golish do it with a couple good years? Because Auburn's so fickle and their alumni and boosters can turn against you quick.
Yeah.
Maybe just Alex Golish. But again, it's a tough one. Yeah.
I think part of Alex Golish would be that if you're, let's say Ohio State. Actually, let's not say Ohio State because that's his alma mater. So let's not say Ohio State for Alex Golish.
Yes, he would be for that one, but
yes. But let's say a different name another team that you look at and you're like, oh, that's an elite program that I'll let you make the decision for that.
Michigan, Kyle Whittingham's that's a bad one because they're the rival there. Oregon, Dan Lanning goes to the NFL.
Okay. Oregon opens up. If I'm Oregon and Alex Golish's name comes across my desk, I'm gonna say, okay, you're not bringing DJ Durkin with you because DJ Durkin is not leaving Auburn. So then I would go, what is your plan defense? Like that'd be my biggest question because you play a style of offense that is very unfriendly to a defense.
You do.
Yes. And so I would need to know what your plan is for defensive coordinator because you're going to put that guy in a lot of bad spots. And so I need to know what your plan is there. So that'd be my concern with Alex Golesh is that you play a style of offense that is not fun to be a DC for.
And that's why, like, you'll have your random games against a UTSA where you get absolutely rolled sometimes.
Yep. And so it's like, that's why that'd be my biggest question. Because that's what I would need answered before I'm committing in you.
But Brandon, we've reached our end here. I want to say thank you for being here. I had a lot of fun this episode. It was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Everything.
It turned into to coaches talk after dark.
Which it frequently does, and that's kind of what I want to focus on. So
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. But I want to thank you for being here. It was great. If you ever need anything from me, feel free to reach out. All of you viewers out there, thank you for tuning into episode 50.